1 Thessalonians 4:15. For this we say unto you by the word of the Lord. Okay, notice this word. There's a 2-letter word. I like small words. I can't handle those big ones, but I like small ones. The word is W-E, we. That includes Paul. Paul's dead and gone now. But at the time he was writing it, when he says we, he's including himself. For this we say unto you by the word of the Lord, that we, which are alive and remain unto the coming of the Lord, shall not prevent them which are asleep. So most Baptists on Sunday morning. For the Lord himself shall descend from heaven with a shout, with the voice of the archangel, with the trump of God, and the dead in Christ shall rise first. Then here it is again, we, which are alive and remain, shall be caught up together with them in the clouds to meet the Lord in the air, and so shall we ever be with the Lord. Now, that's exciting. Now, if it was ever a we for Paul, you know it's a we for me. It could happen at any minute. Now, think about this. For both your need-to-do list for God and the fake, phony scare tactics of the devil for your problems, if those were solved tomorrow, if you were gone tomorrow, what would you be doing today? Let's imagine we knew that tomorrow at noon he was coming. What would that do to your brain? There's some things you need to get done for God, so you better get on that. And there's a whole bunch of bills coming due that you ain't got to worry about. There's a whole bunch of problems that you'll never be around to see how they pan out. You got some better place to be. Now, let's assume that instead of tomorrow at noon, let's say it's actually going to be in 3 years. Okay, it's still pretty good. You can endure most things for 3 years, can't you? I mean, you young people can't imagine that, but us old folks, we know 3 years ain't nothing. Okay, well, it could be even sooner than that. I don't know. Maybe we'll get out of here before I finish tonight. That'd be a good deal. But we can remember that. And when problems start up, take the devil here. Show him, hey, Paul said we. He didn't make it, but that might be me. So you might not be able to talk to me very long. So spit it out quick. All right, Hosea. That was our uplifting message for the night. Yeah. Now to Hosea.
Maybe wonder why you were doing that.
Right.
Hosea.
Hosea 2. Hosea 2, verse 10. Hosea 2:10. Let's see, I've lost my place now. Ezekiel, Daniel, Hosea. Hosea 2:10. Let's see if we need anything there. Okay, let's pick it up in 9 just to get a little context. Therefore will I return and take away my corn in the time thereof, and my wine in the season thereof, and I will recover my wool, my flax, given to cover her nakedness. Now our new verse, verse 10. And now will I discover her lewdness in the sight of her lovers, and none shall deliver her out of my hand. Whew. This is God mad. Of course, he's already said, you've been taking advantage of the blessings I've been giving you, and I'm going to take them back now. Then he goes a step farther, and he says, I'm going to make you bear before your enemies, basically, that you thought were your friends. They're no longer your friends. And I'm doing this. Now he's turning her over to, he says her lovers in the verse, but that's the pagan countries. But he's saying, even those pagans are in his hand. He says, none shall deliver her out of my hand. That is, God controls even the pagans. When they're reprimanding his children at his command, he's still in control of it. They can only go so far, and he'll accomplish what he needs done. Isaiah chapter 3. Isaiah 3, verse 17. says, therefore the Lord will smite with a scab the crown of the head of the daughters of Zion, and the Lord will discover their secret parts. You know, there's nothing hid from God. And this, which we can live with to a degree, because we know he's not going to be blabbing it all over. But here he's threatening to do just that. I'm going to reveal your secrets to everybody. Oh, look, Jeremiah 13. Jeremiah 13, verse 22. And if thou say in thine heart, wherefore cometh these things upon me? I'm just, a little innocent man down here. Why did this happen to me? Why is everybody picking on me? For the greatness of thine iniquity are thy skirts discovered, and thy heels made bare. He said, you weren't ashamed when you should have been ashamed. So I'm going to bring shame to you. Ouch. Look at verse 26. Therefore will I discover thy skirts upon thy face, that thy shame may appear. One of the problems in America is people don't know how to blush. They're not embarrassed by anything. Well, they'll be embarrassed when Jesus Christ comes back and shows what true holiness is versus what they were. Ooh. Luke chapter 12. Luke 12, verse 3. Jesus says, therefore, whatsoever ye have spoken in darkness shall be heard in the light, and that which ye have spoken in the ear, in closets, shall be proclaimed upon the housetop. Wow. Now, fortunately for us, that'll happen at the judgment seat of Christ. I say fortunately, that'll still be embarrassing, but it'll just be amongst the family. I don't know how you raise your kid. You raise me the way you want. The way I did mine was there were certain things that were family issues. We dealt with those as a family indoors. Nobody else needs to know this information. Okay, that's the way God's going to handle us. At the judgment seat of Christ, these things will come out, but it's going to be family. And I don't think you got to worry too much about everybody looking at you. They'll have their own problems to be looking at. But before him, it'll be embarrassing. Yes. Proverbs chapter 11. Proverbs 11, verse 21. He says, though hand join in hand, the wicked shall not be unpunished, but the seed of the righteous shall be delivered. He says you can build you up an alliance with the wicked if you want to, but it's not going to stop what I'm going to do. We've got this thing that happened with the bailout. The government bailed out all the big businesses because they own the government anyway. But the slogan was too big to fail. Well, I'm sorry, that's crazy. The only one too big to fail is God. Amen. All the rest of us are little peons down here, and we can fail. The confederacy you find, people do this, they join up as though the strength of man is going to enable them to get through something. No, God does what God wants to do, whether you've got 10 or a million on your side. Usually in the Bible, a confederacy is bad. Now, except for when the South seceded. No, I'm not going there. That's not in the Bible, so that one was okay. Genesis 14. The only confederacy a man needs is with God. That one cannot fail. Genesis 14, verse 13. There came one that had escaped and told Abram, the Hebrew, for he dwelt in the plain of Mamre, the Amorite, brother of Eshcol and brother of Aner. These were confederate with Abraham. Okay, that's a good confederacy. Now, it's not because Abraham was anything special. It's because Abraham was following God. Now, you follow the right leader, then you'll end up in the right spot. And what you're going to find out is he goes down there and he saves Lot from a whole bunch of other bad confederacies. So very rarely do you find a good confederacy, but that doesn't mean don't find a good one. There's a good one to have. If you can't find a good one on this earth, you know you've got one in God. And that one will outshine anything man could come up with. Psalm chapter 83. Psalm 83 verse 5. This is what we normally find. Psalm 83, 5. For they have consulted together with one consent. They are confederate against thee. You know, most confederacies are not about positive things. They're about negative things. You get a confederacy with God, it's about something positive. Now, the world doesn't view it as positive, but holiness is positive. Amen. Righteousness is positive. In his presence is fullness of joy. I think that's positive, not negative. That's a good confederacy. Look at Isaiah 7. Isaiah 7 verse 2. And it was told the house of David, saying, Syria is confederate with Ephraim. Now, I don't know why, but my mind always wants to reverse that and think that it's Ephraim who's joined up with Syria. But if you look at it, it's the other way around. It's the heathen who joined Ephraim. The world shouldn't be comfortable joining us. I'm sorry, a lost person ought to walk through those doors because he wants to get saved, but he shouldn't be comfortable here. Should be something special here, not his family. Look at the next chapter over, Isaiah 8. Isaiah 8 verse 9. Isaiah 8 verse 9. Associate yourselves, O ye people, and ye shall be broken in pieces, and give ear, all ye of far countries. Gird yourselves, and ye shall be broken in pieces. Gird yourselves, and ye shall be broken in pieces, in case you didn't hear me the first time. This is what God's going to do with all the nations of the world. One day they're going to finally unite. They're going to work out all their petty differences, and they're going to say they're going to have world peace. On this globe right here, the only way man has peace is by finding a common enemy. That's the way they achieve peace. The only times they get along, you know, we had a great uniting of nations when we went after Hitler. But that's because we had a common enemy. Not necessarily we had all the same goals. Us and Russia didn't really get along. But we sure got along just fine when it came to getting Hitler. Okay, well, we're going to reverse that thing and be on God's team. Okay? He says right here, I'm going to get all of the nations together. They're going to think they're having a big peace treaty. And in their mind, their peace is we're getting rid of God. That's the Antichrist goal. Has been all the way since Isaiah 15. I'm going to take him down off the throne. I'm going to put my own up. Look at Isaiah 54. Isaiah 54 verse 15. Behold, they shall surely gather together, but not by me. Whosoever shall gather together against thee shall fall for thy sake. Now that's a great verse. Now I know doctrinally it's for Israel, and it'll be at a time when it counts. Right now it wouldn't count. They're against God. But one day when they unite behind God and all the other nations come against him, he says it won't matter, because just because you're in the way, I'll take care of them. They think they're going to come after you, but they're not. Zechariah 14. Zechariah 14 verse 1. Behold, the day of the Lord cometh, and thy spoils shall be divided in the midst of thee. For I will gather all nations against Jerusalem to battle. And the city shall be taken, and the houses rifled, and the women ravished. And half the city shall go forth into captivity, And the residue of the people shall not be cut off from the city. That's exactly what he's telling them in Hosea. I'm going to turn you over to a wicked people. Oof. And you're not going to escape my hand. Verse 3. Then shall the Lord go forth and fight against those nations as when he fought in the day of battle. Only it's just been over 2,000 years. There's a 2,000-year gap at least between verse 2 and verse 3. But it's going to happen. It's prophecy. One day it will be fulfilled. Hosea 2 verse 11. I will also cause all her mirth to cease, her feast days, her new moons, her Sabbaths, all her solemn feasts. There it is again, a nice little small word. I like those small words. Her, H-E-R. It keeps repeating. Her mirth, her feast days, her new moons, her Sabbaths, her solemn feast. Guess what? She didn't have any of those. Those were things that God gave the nation. But he says, no, they've counterfeited it. And now they've got those things on their own. I'm not associated with those things. He separates himself. He said, don't consider me part of your feast days and your new moons and all that stuff. I'm not part of that. That's something you cooked up on your own. And they did. We'll find out how they did it. Isaiah chapter 1. Isaiah chapter 1. He says, there's something about you attending all of these things that is just sickening to me. Imagine that. So they're doing something wrong. They had contaminated it to such a degree that God no longer wanted to be associated with something he had given them. Isaiah 1 verse 13. Bring no more vain oblations. Incense is an abomination unto me. The new moons, the Sabbaths, the calling of assemblies, I cannot away with it. It is iniquity. Even the solemn meeting, your new moons, your appointed feast, my soul hateth. They are trouble unto me. I am weary to bear them. He says, what was supposed to be holy and right and just, you have perverted to such a degree I can't even stand it. Now I wonder if he's saying that when he looks down at most churches nowadays, or most Christians' lives. Oof. I'm going to tell you how bad this gets. Look down at verse 10. Hear the word of the Lord, ye rulers of Sodom. Give ear unto the law of our God, ye people of Gomorrah. He's talking to Israel, not Sodom and Gomorrah. Sodom and Gomorrah ceased to exist way back in Genesis. Whew, that's calling them names. He's picking on them. I mean, he is. Look at Amos chapter 8. Here's what they were doing. Amos 8, verse 5. They would go to the feast day or whatever it was, the feast of the Lord, the assembly they were supposed to be at. And their mind was 1,000,000 miles away. Didn't have anything to do with what they were doing. They were just going through the motions. They were there to check off present. I was here, noted and accounted for. Amos 8, verse 5. Saying, when will the new moon be gone, that we may sell corn? And the Sabbath, that we may set forth wheat, making the ephah small and the shekel great, falsifying the balance by deceit. Okay, what they're doing here is they're trying to figure out, okay, how many years is it going to be until Jubilee? Because, you know, at Jubilee, everything resets. So the inflation rises for 7 years. At 7 years, there's a reset. So they're sitting here calculating how much money they're going to make while they're supposed to be attending an assembly. That says, this is wickedness to me. You're doing this for your own profit. That's where your mind is, when it's supposed to be a function of something that's righteousness. Look at Amos 8, verse 9. And it shall come to pass in that day, saith the Lord God, that I will cause the sun to go down at noon, and I will darken the earth in the clear day. I will turn your feast into mourning. Says, okay, I've been sick watching you try to perform my feast but your mind's not there. So what I'll do is I'll just let you experience some of what I'm feeling. I'll turn your feast into mourning and all your songs into lamentation. I will bring up sackcloth upon all loins and baldness upon every head, and I will make it as the mourning of an only son, and the end thereof as a bitter day. Whew. He says, you're not going to honor me with the feast? Okay, I'll dishonor the feast and you with it. Wow. And that's what he's saying to a nation. Isaiah chapter 1, look at verse 13. He uses very strong language here. Isaiah 1:13. Bring no more vain oblations. That's a sacrifice that they were obligated to bring. Incense is, look at this word, an abomination. Woo! That's a man trying to curse God. Wow. An abomination unto me. And he says it's the religious things you're doing. Supposedly religious things. So we can do all the right things, but if the heart's not right, God's not fooled. He said, I've been putting up with that with the nation, and I'm no longer going to put up with it. Ooh. Proverbs 6. Proverbs 6, verse 16. Proverbs 6:16. This is a great list. I keep giving you all these lists, I know. This is a great list to review from time to time and identify where you fit in on this list. Now, I didn't say if you, I said where you, because we do. These 6 things doth the Lord hate, yea, 7 are an abomination unto him. A proud look, we talked about that this morning. A lying tongue, hands that shed innocent blood, a heart that deviseth wicked imaginations, feet that be swift in running to mischief, a false witness that speaketh lies, and he that soweth discord among the brethren. Now, I'm not going to spiritualize all those things for you, but you can, and you can get a great reprimand out of a blessing out of it. But find out if there's anything on that list God's saying, you're doing an abomination to me. Somewhere on that list, I'm sure there's something that all of us in here need to repent of. Okay, find it, and don't be putting up an abomination before God. We see what he did to Israel for doing an abomination. 1 Kings 2. 1 Kings 21. Well, you can read all the way from chapter 2 to 21. 1 Kings 21. 1 Kings 21, verse 9. Never be fooled by an abundance of religiosity. That's a big word. People acting religious. When you can tell when it's fake. I mean, I think you can. You can just tell when somebody is trying to talk spiritual and it's not natural for their mouth. You can hear them. You know that just 10 minutes ago they were cussing and now they've come around you and it's praise the Lord, and it just doesn't sound right coming out of their mouth. Okay, people are like that, and if we're not careful, we can be too. Here's one. 1 Kings 21:9. Jezebel. And she wrote in the letters, saying, proclaim a fast, and set Nabal on high among the people. She's setting him up to kill him. But she's going to make it a religious event. There have been a whole bunch of religious wars fought. I don't call those Christian wars. I know the Catholics do, but I don't. I'm not a Catholic. There's been a lot of religious wars. Religion is a great pretext people use to get their own way, and it usually follows with bloodshed. Matthew chapter 26. Matthew 26, verse 2. This is, of course, talking about Jesus' crucifixion, or the plotting and planning of it. Matthew 26:2. You know that after 2 days is the feast of the Passover. Doesn't get any more holy and high and religious than that. And the Son of Man is betrayed to be crucified. What a time to be doing that. Watch it. The old saying is this: when you get near God, you also get near the devil. He doesn't run just because you wanted to do right all of a sudden. He gets in closer. I like the, what was C.S. Lewis? Screw tapes. He says the devil calls to the demon that's working this man, and he says, your man has become very humble. Have you brought his attention to it? Just because you get near God and you start doing one thing that's right, don't think the devil's going to run. Matthew 26, verse 4. And they consulted that they might take Jesus by subtlety and kill him. But they said, not on the feast day, lest there be an uproar among the people. They're so religious. They want to keep that holy and pristine. But they've got blood in their eyes. Look down at verse 48, Matthew 26:48. Now he that betrayed him gave them a sign, saying, whomsoever I shall kiss, that same is he, hold him fast. See how sweet that sounds? But it ain't. This is the one you can kill. I'm going to go give him a big hug and kiss and act like we're good, but no. He says in another place that Judas was worried that they wouldn't hurt him. Yeah, right. He knew what was going on. Matthew 23. Matthew 23, Jesus confronts some hypocrites. Woe unto you, scribes and Pharisees, hypocrites, for ye are like unto whited sepulchres, which indeed appear beautiful outward, but are within full of dead men's bones and of all uncleanness. It's more important to get the inside cleaned up than to wear a nice, bright, shiny uniform. That's Matthew 23, verse 27. He says it's just like the gravestone out there. The stone looks pretty. You start digging, you're going to run into some bones, probably some rotten flesh. He says it's uncleanness. Whew. Verse 28. Even so ye also. Ouch. He makes the application. Now, it would have been nice had he just left it at verse 27 and said, you apply that if it applies or if it doesn't. But that's not the kind of preacher he was. He says, I'm talking about you. That wasn't just an off-the-cuff illustration. Even so ye also outwardly appear righteous unto men, but within ye are full of hypocrisies and iniquity. That was the nation in Hosea's day. And that was the message God had for them. Now, if he's had that message to Hosea, he had it in Amos, he had it in Obadiah, we've seen it every book. He's had it when he came to earth, and you can count on it. It's still the same message. So ask him. Hopefully, it doesn't apply to you. But ask him and find out. I'd rather find out and get it cleaned up than to not do it and find out at the wrong point when you can't do anything about it that it did apply to you. Matthew 23:33. Matthew 23:33. Ye serpents, ye generation of vipers, how can you escape the damnation of hell? Wow. That's some touch. That's Matthew 23:33. That's some tough preaching, but that's the way Jesus preached. He said the same thing in Hosea's day. I'm going to deliver you to some nations that are cruel, and nobody's going to deliver you out of my hand, was the message. Hosea 2, look at verse 12. Hosea 2, verse 12. Now, I don't just limit it to Hosea's day, although it was Hosea's day. it's been the nation of Israel, their whole existence as far as modern times are concerned. You just look at it, it lines up. They've always been kicked from one country to the next. It won't be long before they're hated wherever they are. It doesn't make any sense. It's not supposed to. It's both satanic. The devil can't stand where Jesus Christ came from. And it's also because God's punishing them. Daniel chapter 9. Look at Hosea 2 verse 12. And I will destroy her vines and her fig trees, whereof she hath said, these are my rewards that my lovers have given me. Talk about a slap in the face. And I will make them a forest, and the beasts of the field shall eat them. And I will visit upon her the days of Balaam, wherein she burned incense to them, and she decked herself with her earrings, her jewels, and she went after her lovers, and forgot me, saith the Lord. So that tells you something about pagan worship. Pagan worship is about being seen. See how it was to be seen? They got all decked out. And it had more than just being decked out and prettified so everybody looks at you. It also was there was a sexual thing going on here too. Now, God's going to use it in the book of Hosea as an analogy of how they've run away from him and are committing adultery with other gods. That means. But the illustration he uses is of a pagan worship service, which included all of that infidelity. Judges chapter 2. He's going to revisit the days of Balaam. So what are the days of Balaam? We'll find them. So the book of Judges, I've often said, the book of Judges is the age we live in. I mean in type. The picture is this. Moses came down and gave them the law. Okay? Then you have Joshua, the derivative of the name Jesus in the New Testament. He comes in and he leads them, one man leading them. Then he goes off the scene. Then we have the book of Judges. What's supposed to happen in the book of Judges is there's no one ruler. There's a bunch of little ones that pop up from time to time, but it's each individual supposed to follow the words that have been written in a book. The law, the Pentateuch. That's where we are today. We don't have any one ruler. Jesus Christ is not walking on the earth anymore. We're supposed to follow him through the words in a book. So in essence, the picture, the type, Judges, is where we sit. This is where Israel started worshiping Balaam. Watch it, chapter 2, verse 11. Judges 2:11. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord and served Balaam. That's a false god they went after. Well, maybe it was just a fluke and they did it once. Chapter 3. Chapter 3, verse 7. And the children of Israel did evil in the sight of the Lord, and forgot the Lord their God, and served Balaam and the groves. Whew. Well, I'm sure they learned their lesson. Chapter 8. Chapter 8, verse 33. And it came to pass, as soon as Gideon was dead, that the children of Israel turned again, and went a-whoring after Balaam, and made Baal-Beroth their god. Whew. Well, I'm sure after that they got the picture. Chapter 10. Chapter 10, verse 6. Chapter 10, verse 6. And the children of Israel did evil again in the sight of the Lord, and served Balaam, and Ashtaroth, that's a male and a female deity, and the gods of Syria, and the gods of Zidon, the gods of Moab, and the gods of the children of Ammon, and the gods of the Philistines, and forsook the Lord and served him not. That is, they're not even playing anymore. They're not going to church, and they're not putting on any airs as though they're religious. They've decided, I'm a pagan now. But they weren't. Judges, look down at verse 10. Judges 10:10. And the children of Israel cried unto the Lord, saying, We have sinned against thee, both because we have forsaken our God and also served Balaam. Well, good, they figured it out. It took them a while. They figured it out. Now, that's us. A Christian can fall into the same mess as the world, into the same pagan practices. Now, we probably won't be as blatant about it as the pagans are. But never forget that we're just flesh like all the rest of them. Look at Jeremiah chapter 2. Jeremiah 2, verse 23. Jeremiah 2, verse 23. How canst thou say, I am not polluted? I have not gone after Balaam. I know that was the bad one. That wasn't me. But he says, I got news for you. See thy way in the valley, and know what thou hast done. Thou art a swift dromedary traversing her ways, a wild ass used to the wilderness that snuffeth up the wind at her pleasure. In her occasion, who can turn her away? All they that seek her will not weary themselves in her month. They shall find her. Withhold thy foot from being unshod, and thy throat from thirst. But thou saidest, There is no hope. No, for I have loved strangers, and after them will I go. There's something I've seen over and over, and it's a lie of the devil is what it is. A person gets saved, or they've been saved and they decide they're going to get right. But they've got an unfulfilled contract with the devil, and they think it's righteous to fulfill their contract with the devil. You owe no allegiance to the devil.
That's right.
If it was wrong from the beginning, then your contract is void from the start. There's no honesty in the devil to begin with. Here, they're saying we won't repent because we've made a contract with these, our lovers, is what they call it here. And so after them, with these strangers, we're going to have to go. We've got an agreement with them, so we've got to fulfill it. Now, where is that? In Psalm 15? Let's see if I can remember that right. Let's see what's in Psalm 15. Oh, I'm pulling that out of the air. It might not be it. Yeah. Psalm 15. We'll go to verse 1. Who shall abide in thy tabernacle? Who shall dwell in thy holy place? Okay, so this is talking about a righteous man. Verse 2. He that walketh uprightly. So being righteous. Drop down to verse 4. This is how David is describing a righteous man. It seems a little harsh for us, but it's Bible. In whose eyes a vile person is condemned. Do Christians condemn vile people? If you're righteous, you do. Now, not because you don't like them. You don't like something about them. And it's not you condemning them. It's you recognizing God's already condemned them. You're nobody to condemn or set free. He says, But he honoreth them that fear the Lord. He that sweareth to his own hurt and changeth not. Now, if you're not careful, the devil will try to use that against you. Well, you told so-and-so you were going to go to that party with them, and, you got to keep your word. No, you don't. You don't keep any word that you've promised to the devil. It's only the righteous man who changes not according to righteousness. He doesn't want you to make a contract with the devil and fulfill that. That's not to your hurt. That wouldn't hurt you. That kills you. The wages of sin is death. Hurt would be your flesh. Okay, I don't want to read my Bible on Tuesday. I'm going to do it anyway. Okay, that hurts, but it doesn't hurt very long. Once you get started, you're enjoying it before you know it. Okay, we better stop it there. The next section will pick up a whole nother paragraph. All right, so I'll let you go early. No, I didn't let you go early, did I?